So team, everybody who tuned in and saw my mouth moving, but I wasn't saying anything. This is the wonderful thing about a live video. You just got to see me saying a bunch of things and then didn't hear anything. So I'm going to say it again. Hello, everybody. This is JJ Hardy with Victory Leadership Coaching, and today I'm doing live training on emotional intelligence. Before I get started, I'm going to tell you my agenda, and then I'll also let you know how to interact with me during this and after it's over. So first of all, the agenda is this. We're going to talk about a number of topics, starting with enhanced leadership effectiveness and emotional intelligence, using emotional intelligence rather, how it affects conflict resolution and collaboration, adaptability and change management, employee well-being and engagement, and effective communication skills. Hey, Brian, I'll give you a call after this is over. Thank you for watching. So how you communicate and how you interact with this training right here is you can get a membership, $60 a month, and you can turn it into collaboration. I'll do the training during the call and we'll talk a little bit there, but most people are more comfortable talking after the call is over. So that's another way. We can have that high level conversation off to the side. In addition to that, during the call, you can post a comment there. That comment during the call will prompt me to answer a question, and we'll get a conversation going that way. It'll be very limited, but you can still do it. Now, another way to do it is keep the conversation going after the live stream is over. And the way to do that is just to leave a comment whenever you see this video, because it stays up on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and keep the conversation going that way and share it with your audience. Now let's get into it. Emotional intelligence is basically understanding your own emotions and the emotions of others. And the way that you do that is by understanding you and understanding them, and the ability to keep calm and make your communication, collaboration, everything that you do effective, because you understand the human condition and the emotions of the people that you're dealing with. Now, how does that enhance leadership effectiveness? So there are interpersonal dynamics all over the place when it comes to emotional intelligence, and people that are aware of their own emotions and how to kind of monitor when they go up and down and all of that sort of thing, they understand how to connect with their teams more deeply. They understand how to motivate their teams and read the room. They also understand how to inspire, because when you can figure out when other people are with you and when they're not, it's extremely beneficial to the communication process. And that's also how you enhance your effective communication skills. Now, as far as conflict resolution and collaboration, let's go to conflict resolution specifically. Conflict, when that happens, usually someone is either upset or they are expressing anger, sadness, whatever the case may be. As a leader, our responsibility in that is to make sure that when we are handling that situation with that individual who may be angry or sad or whatever, that we don't break down to their level or raise up to their level. When we do that, all we're doing is we are giving them permission to get more emotional. And when you bring high amounts of extreme emotions into a situation, nothing ever gets solved. Let me give you an example. When somebody is upset because you just presented them with a counseling statement for being late 3 times in the last month, and you let them know that there's potential that they could be let go from the job if it continues. And maybe they get really, really mad about that and they start yelling at you. Well, that's a natural response. Nobody likes to know that their income level is going to change. One way to deal with that is to just let them vent. Once they are done saying what they got to say, make sure you're listening to what they're saying, but ask them, hey, are you done? It's okay. It's okay that you're upset about this. I understand. But I noticed that while you were angry, you said A, B, C, and D. Let's address A, B, C, and D. If you're calm enough, is it okay if we talk about that? And if they get upset again, let them vent again. But if not, now that they've had an opportunity to get what's bothering them off of their chest, you can have a more structured conversation with them. And when you're dealing with upset employees in the workplace, maybe they're arguing on a sales floor, or maybe in the warehouse, they're arguing in front of everybody else. You address it the same way. You pull them off to the side individually. You go one-on-one with them and let them say what they're going to say, and they're probably going to be angry when they're saying it. Listen. Actively listen to what they're saying. Don't respond with what you're thinking the whole time. Take a mental note, or maybe even a physical note, of what you want to say to them after they get done being upset, and address their specific concerns. I noticed you said A, B, C, and D. Address it the same way that we talked about on the first one. And obviously, this is only one way to handle it. But at the end of the day, the only way to properly handle that situation is to be calm. Who cares how the conversation goes afterwards? If you meet them on a higher level and you are angry with them, guess what? They're going to get more angry. Then you're going to get more angry. Then they're going to get even angrier. And before you know it, who knows what that looks like? Some people go into fisticuffs. It just turns into a bad day. Don't do that. There is no resolve in meeting people where they are emotionally when they're distraught, whether that's in sadness or in anger. It doesn't work. You have to, and you can feel whatever you want to feel. My leaders that I've worked with over the years, they always tell me, hey, look, you always keep calm. And if you feel that fire in your belly, don't say anything until it starts to go away. Because you never communicate with another person mad, because nothing ever gets solved that way. And nothing is ever constructive that way. That's like the basis of emotional intelligence. I'm going to get a sip of coffee. Okay. Moving right along. Dang, that's good. I love coffee. All right. Collaboration. It works the same way. You might be in a meeting with a bunch of people, and you guys been making plans for weeks, and say whatever lane you're working in, say that, I'll use an example from my military time. Say transportation logistics pops up, and they completely glaze over you, and they say, don't worry about it, JJ's got that. Oh my gosh, I heard that a lot. And it would anger me. When the very first time that happened, I got into a you know what contest with the person who said that right in the middle of the meeting. And guess what? I lost my credibility with everyone in that room. But I learned from, by the way, a great leader who was in that room with me, that when your emotions are up like that, because you've just been blown off, I mean, you can't sugarcoat it. That's exactly what's happened. If it's not important to them, if it's not important to your boss, you probably did something to make it so that, or maybe you didn't do enough to make it so that your lane is important, or you didn't express the importance of what you're doing enough to where they would take time in a meeting to discuss it. But I learned over the course of, actually not immediately, but a year from that, I had to slowly adapt the way that I did it. And when in that meeting, they glazed over me, I used that as fuel to get as much information from each and every single person in that room after the meeting was over with. And I learned how to turn people's head in my direction and talk to them about how my lane affects their lane and how we can work together as a team to build a plan. And guess what? Once I learned how to do that, as we move forward as a team, when those planning meetings come up and we had a room where we were briefing our own stuff and we could talk about how we were working together to make stuff happen, they didn't blow me off anymore. I had to earn my spot in the room, and I did that through building relationships. And if I would have blown up like I did that first time, I would have never had a spot with any of those people again. Well, I can't say that, but it would, healing relationships, it's much more difficult than establishing a relationship from scratch with people that haven't seen you in the room before. Very important to understand that. The moment you get looked at as that emotional creature that doesn't handle things well, you're always going to be looked at that way, and you're going to have to repair relationships. But if you start off being that level-headed person, then people are going to come to you all the time. It's not going to be a big deal. Okay, moving right along, because I'm taking a long time to discuss this, and I apologize for that. All right, adaptability and change management. Really, it's the same thing. If you're in charge of a team and you've been given the task to make certain changes happen within that team, include them. But this comes under this is like a different type of collaboration, right? Change management doesn't happen in one's head and on one's desk, especially when it affects an entire team. So what you do is you include the people making the change. The ones that are executing, especially if it's multiple sections, you get the team leaders in the room. And if you're a small team, you get the people executing the task in the room, and you have a conversation about it. Hey, look, we've been tasked to make A, B, C, and D happen. I anticipate that this, and this is going to be the most difficult part. But before we talk about my thing, I want to find out from you, since you're on ground doing all the work, I want to know how that's going to affect you. And you're going to get different opinions from different people, but when you include them, execution is going to be better. Now, when everybody starts talking about their stuff, sometimes that elicits an emotional reaction in the room. It should never elicit an emotional reaction with you, and if it does, you keep quiet till you can respond calmly. But with everyone else in the room, you don't rise to their level when they start getting upset about what John and Jane said. You take a step back. It's not wrong to let them hash it out if it bothers you too for a second, but then you say, hey, look, let's talk about this. Take control of the room and work through it. And as changes start becoming executed after the planning is over, the same thing is going to happen. You just make sure you talk to people and say, hey, look, I understand that didn't work, but let's work through it together as a team. Okay. And that's an ongoing process. Change happens all the time, and it should. If you're afraid of change, you need to become a certain level of friends with it, because really, in order to have success, you got to adapt, and adapt requires change. Adaptation requires change. All right. employee engagement and well-being and an effective communication, they're kind of all together, right? There are ways that people communicate. There is verbal and there's nonverbal. You need to understand your people in order to understand how they typically communicate. In doing this, if somebody has a defensive posture, you'll know it, and that's nonverbal. If somebody raises their eyebrows and shrugs their shoulders, you'll know what kind of an emotional reaction they're having. You got to understand you have to have the emotional intelligence to understand more than just what is being said on your team. You have to understand their body language and how the things that are being said throughout communication on your team affect one another. And when you do that, you can build proper teams because you know how to communicate with everybody. And remember, communication is not just about the spoken word, it's also in the body language and the facial expressions that happen with an individual. So those are, if you can master that part, I go through this when I teach my course, and I don't talk about it very long. I mention it and I let people go on their way because I want them to understand their way, not my way. But emotional intelligence is not discussed nearly enough because it's a part of leadership. You can't create influence if you don't know who you're leading. And you get to know that person by understanding their strengths, their weaknesses, and the way they communicate verbally and non-verbally. That's about it. So, if you have questions about this, or if you want to share your experiences, I have almost 800 people in my audience. Somebody's going to see this video and think something about it. Please share that thought in these comments below so that we can get a conversation going. This is oftentimes the elephant in the room. Emotional intelligence is not discussed nearly as much as it should be. Everyone talks about diversity, equity, inclusion, and they talk about how to effectively communicate, but they don't talk about emotional intelligence. I would like this conversation to keep going. So please leave a comment and get a conversation going. If you're, depending on the platform you're on, like it, subscribe to it, share it, repost it to your audience, or comment. Let's take the elephant and address it and make sure that people understand these things so that they can communicate better. I can't even talk. See, it's a live stream, people. I can't edit this stuff out. No, please address the elephant in the room so that people can learn and grow and communicate better, to be better people. That's all I have to say about all that. And if you want to have some training done on your team or whatever the case, you can always reach out to me. That's a different conversation. I'm not here to sell anybody. I'm just here to educate. So this is an important topic. But Friday leadership training is done. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. Stay blessed. And I hope to hear from some people. Please make sure you keep the conversation going. Nothing but love for y'all. JJ Hardy out.